everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I did something yesterday a little bit different, and I thought I would chat with you guys about it a little bit today. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skill at my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And this is something I have historically kind of stood against and said, hey, this is not a good idea. You really shouldn't be training fasted. But I had to think about a few things, weigh out some different possibilities, and I need to continue this cut. And since I had a minor injury, which seems to be mostly healed and recovered, I did have an infection I needed to deal with. It has been harder to train legs. So it's been harder to burn more calories. Plus I didn't want to lose a bunch of muscle. So I've been on maintenance for about 3 weeks, and that put me from 209 up to about 214. So just again, because I've regained some of the water weight I've lost. And for people curious, that's still 16 pounds less than the last DEXA scan, but I do need to drop back down a bit. I have the DEXA coming up this month. And, so that did sidetrack me a little bit, but you can't cut when you're hurt or you're sick. The worst thing you can do is be in a calorie deficit because it can compromise your immune system. It can compromise healing. It's really a stupid idea. I don't care, unless your career depends on it, you don't cut when you're recovering from something like that. Again, don't let idiots tell you to do so. It's a bad idea. You need energy for recovery. And again, cutting too long can compromise immune system, everything else. So I've been at maintenance calories for just a little bit, for 3 weeks or so. And, I've been thinking about what strategy I want to use going back into it. And because I've noticed I'm not having any pain in my lower back now, everything's better. Strength has been coming back along really good. Recovering finally from my infection in my foot. Antibiotics are working great, so everything's going good there. So all these issues are over, and I needed to ease back into my cut. And I saw my bro, Nico Ella. I'm going to give him a shout out here. He's admitted I've taught him things about training, but he is a nutrition coach, and he does know a hell of a lot about maximizing body composition, particularly in drug-free people. He's a nutrition coach at this point for a living. Quit his corporate job to do that full time. Pretty much science-based guy. He actually was saying on social media the other day, you don't really always need a pre-workout meal. Not always necessary. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, let me experiment with it, because what it comes down to, how hard can you train? And how hard can you recover from it? The thing is, in cutting, I'm not necessarily going to be pushing maximum recoverable volume. So we get into that debate of, do I have enough muscle glycogen to train on? Is everything going to be good? So I decided to give it a go. I'm like, maybe Nico is right. Maybe I do, because I've been fasting on my off days, and that's helped me with this cut a lot. That's helped, I think, with the last 15 pounds or so. That has actually helped tremendously, to just wait till noon or 1 o'clock and then protein load and then eat the rest of my food. Has helped me with diet adherence. It's helped me manage calories. So we start to get into this debate of, fasting windows, training fasted, training stimulus versus, catabolism. And basically the concern of, can you train hard enough to maintain muscle without eating food? And I guess it gets into the question of, how hard do we need to train when cutting? I don't know if we need to be pushing those bleeding limits. We can't recover the same unless you're blasting a bunch of drugs. So I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, maybe Nico is right. So let me see how my performance is, because that's what it's going to come down to, guys. That's been the argument, and that's what the research has shown, is that in athletes, training fasted can impede performance. And if you're impeding performance, that's going to impede your competitiveness. But I'm in a weight loss phase, eating back into my cut full time after 3 weeks at maintenance. Do I really need to be stimulating maximum growth, or do I need to just be trying to hold on to what I have? Maybe gain a little here or there. So I'm like, let me see what happens. Let me just go ahead and go into my full body workout, which was front squats, floor press, weighted pull-ups, standing press. And I think I did 13 total work sets. I would count as real work sets for the day. And I did it fasted, and I didn't lose any performance. In fact, I gained a small amount of performance versus the workout before that was fed. And so it made me start to ask the question of, it's not that necessarily fasting helps more with fat loss other than the caloric control, but it's about diet adherence. And if I'm only giving myself a 6 or 7 hour window to eat in the evenings, that works really well. In fact, that allowed me to actually have a social life, go on dates. When I was doing that last 15 pounds, I had days to where I had like burgers and beer and tater tots and stuff for dinner, like out in social settings. Had 3 or 4 glasses of wine some nights on a date, and was still losing weight. And it was because I was messing with the fasting and doing that on my off days from training. It worked really, really well. So there is something to be said for that, because it allows you to get just protein and vegetables and things like that in your first meal. And then you can kind of work in other foods on days where you need to be social. And that's kind of the beauty of the whole fasting thing. It does allow you to do that. I'm not saying you should be eating like that every day. You shouldn't be. But it does allow you to continue to sometimes have a caloric deficit, particularly if you carry a lot of muscle and you train hard. Your maintenance calories are going to be super high. Like my maintenance calories are something like 3,500 plus. So I can get away with that. So if I go eat 1,000 calories of protein and like chicken and broccoli, and then go into an evening meal like that, I mean, I can eat 2,000 calories and still be in a deficit. I can have 2,000 calories in the evening and still be in a deficit. So it worked really, really well. So I did decide to experiment with it today. And I mean, I was surprised. I was able to maintain my normal performance completely fasted. Completely fasted. So it worked well. Didn't eat breakfast until 1 o'clock. And so after training, I had whey protein and creatine. And then I started eating my normal food afterwards. Which included, broccoli and rice and stew and chicken and all of that stuff. So that's what I started having afterwards. But that fasted training actually went just fine. It went fine. So this is kind of the question we get into when we're balancing these things, is that it's just not always a simple yes or no. Yes, we know for athletes attempting to gain maximum performance, fasted training is bad. We could argue it may be a problem for muscle loss if you can't perform optimally during even a weight loss phase. But I guess the question we're getting into is, are you consuming enough total protein? Can you train hard enough? And for you personally, does fasting help you with diet adherence and maintaining a caloric deficit? Again, that's a very, very individual thing, isn't it? And I don't think that's a simple yes or no. Hey, we've got this study on athletes, so this is what applies to everyone. Well, I don't know if that's always the case. I think it depends on the sort of training loads you're using. I think it depends on the training loads and training volume you're doing. Most of us out here, let's be honest here, if you're not bulking and you're not blasting gear, you are probably not doing ultra high volume training. So we start to get into this question of how much glycogen do you really need? Do you have enough glucose stores from a little bit of carbs in your carbs in the evening and the protein and everything you're having in the evening to make it through the moderate volume training sessions that you're probably going to be doing on those successful cuts? Maybe so. In my case, it was fine. I tried it. I wanted to just see how it would go. And so I'm going to continue to experiment with this a little bit moving forward because I do need to drop another 20 pounds on this cut. I've had a 3-week diet break now. I need to ease back into the cut. So I want to mess with this a little bit. I want to see where it goes. I want to see if I can make it work. Because that's what these things come down to. These are just different tools. Every single diet secret that everyone has, whether it's, you need to eat more fiber, you need to eat clean, you need to intermittent fast, or up your protein, or whatever it is that people have you do, what you're generally looking for is just better diet adherence. Can you control your calories better? And for me, I'm a big eater. I like really big meals. And so for me, it does make sense for that. From an optimal muscle protein synthesis perspective, it doesn't make sense. But from a diet adherence perspective, it does make sense. Because truth be told, when I want to go back and gain muscle, I have no trouble eating enough food. Right? I have no problem whatsoever upping my calories to get more food in so I can regain muscle. I'm not worried about it. I just need to stave off muscle loss the best I can while continuing to bring that body weight down. I can always regain the little bit I'm going to lose later. So if the fasted training ends up being a valuable tool for me and I can still train hard enough to hold on to muscle pretty well, it might be viable. So I want to experiment with it a little bit myself and see how it goes. Does that mean it's right for everyone? Absolutely not. But it might end up being right for me. And like I said, I'm over 40 pounds into my cut already, another 20 to go. Let's experiment a little bit with stuff just to make it easier, because the deeper you get into a cut, the harder it can be psychologically, energy-wise. You guys know what I'm talking about. It can start to be a problem. So little tools that you can use as you get further in. Don't throw these big tools in right away. work them in as they're needed. And I think I'm at a point in my training and my cut and everything to where I do need to add in some extra tools like that just to help me out a little bit with the diet adherence. Because as I start getting closer down towards something like 10 or 11%, I think for me my appetite is really going to start to become a problem. So I think I really need to start having the tools in place now as I'm approaching that 15% body fat line to be ready for those things. So I need to experiment with some of this stuff now to see if I can make it work. And I was surprised. I was actually able to train quite effectively. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.